All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I am ready to discuss the Denver Nuggets, who are in the midst of a longer off period right now. They have taken the time, certainly. On Sunday, they won against the Charlotte Hornets. We recapped that game on Monday. They just had a practice yesterday. They're going to have another practice today, and then they're going to travel to Sacramento this afternoon ahead of a game tomorrow night against the Kings. If you're listening to this on Wednesday morning, they will play on Thursday night. But the great thing about the schedule that we've got going on here with the NBA Cup is that the Nuggets don't have to do too terribly much over the course of this week. And it's given them an opportunity to reset, given me an opportunity to reset and think about some different things, think about some different numbers and stats and facts and figures and predictions I've made and the way that the Nuggets have approached things that I think is healthy, that I think it's a nice little opportunity to reset. Now, I asked David Adelman about resetting at practice yesterday, and he's like, well, every time we talk about resetting and coming back home, we lose. So I'm not sure if he is super enthused about the idea of a reset per se. Denver's gotten into a really good rhythm on the road. They'll be doing that again here on Thursday night. We'll see whether that continues. But there's plenty of opportunities now, I think, to discuss what's going on with the Nuggets, what has been going on with the Nuggets from a stats and a lineup perspective, and then make a prediction. I'm going to make a prediction in the second segment on where Denver's record is going to be after 41 games played. So the next 18 games, how Denver does, how does Denver do, excuse me. And then we will talk about the West NBA Cup games tonight. That will be the last thing that we do. I wrote an article this morning, and had a good time with it. I thought that it came out pretty nicely. Denver is in a very interesting place from a lineup perspective because they've gotten some good data on different groups that I've really enjoyed seeing. I've really enjoyed putting together. The link for this, I'm not sure if it's going to work. I'm just going to throw it in the comments here just so everybody can see if they want to. Mile High Sports, 3 Denver Nuggets lineups that are better and 2 worse than expected. I thought that this was a good, valuable thing to at least put into perspective how the Nuggets have done, how the Nuggets have played, what they have shown over the course of these last few weeks, where especially like Christian Brown went down about a month ago. He's nearing 4 weeks in terms of the amount of time that he's missed. Aaron Gordon's closer to 3. Obviously, he's a little bit later than that. But it does seem to me like Denver has found a rhythm with their current starting lineup. And I'm going to show the numbers here. This starting lineup that Denver has put together, Jamal Murray, Peyton Watson, Cam Johnson, Spencer Jones, and Nikola Jokic, I think it's been surprisingly good for a lot of people. According to Cleaning the Glass, they have played 251 possessions and have an offensive rating of 137.5. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous number. It shows the efficiency that Jokic and Murray have been playing with, but also the adaptability that Peyton Watson, Cam Johnson, and Spencer Jones have shown. I know Peyton Watson's been up and down from an offensive perspective. He's missed some layups. He's made some turnovers that I think a lot of people are a little bit confused about. And then Cam Johnson has been, while he's been better over the course of this stretch, to be clear, he still has those moments where he can go for 7 points, 8 points, and isn't really necessarily impacting it from a points perspective. But what he's done in terms of adapting to the lineup, making sure that it's a good lineup, has been really great. And then Spencer Jones, folks, the lineup as a whole has an effective field goal percentage of 67.8. 67.8 is crazy. For comparison's sake, on the season, Nikola Jokic, who's one of the most efficient players we've ever seen, has an effective field goal percentage of 67.3 which is a career high. So the lineup as a whole has had an EFG percentage that rivals even Nikola Jokic. Like, that's crazy. And like, it's actually been better. And one of the reasons for that is because Spencer Jones shooting 45% from three. Like, that's on the season. That's not entirely like just this group, but it shows what Spencer Jones has been able to do, stepping up in place of some of the things that you would expect from a guy like Aaron Gordon, from a guy like Christian Brown. I think those guys have been critical in what they've done. And by trusting them early on in the process, I think David Adelman has unlocked a better version of them. We'll talk about them a little bit later in this segment, but I do think that Peyton Watson, Spencer Jones, the way that they've played, if they hadn't played that way, then we'd be in a very different place with where Denver's starting lineup has been and how many games they're actually winning. Now, defensive rating 119.5 is not very good, but they still have a plus 17.9 net rating because the offense has just been unbelievable. A lot of that isn't necessarily at the beginning of the game, but it's been at the beginning of the third quarter where Denver really turns it on. They've been unbelievable offensively in that quarter, and it's just not a surprise to me the way that Denver's lineups have suddenly started to go. Like, if they're down at the end of the first half, they've been kicking into gear all season in that third quarter. And like, this is the lineup that's been out there for most of that. Next lineup, Jamal Murray, Tim Hardaway Jr., Peyton Watson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. This one's more of a reminder to people of how good Denver was. As great as a 137.5 offensive rating was for this starting group, the lineup I just mentioned, 141.1. 141.1 is crazy. That's an insane lineup. You've got the two primary bench guys that you're going to be using going forward, and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Peyton Watson coming in off the bench and playing next to Denver's three best players in Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. And I think that one makes a lot of sense. It's also a nice little reminder for people. Like, the defensive rating in this one was also very good. I'm not expecting it to be 94.6 like it was. Like, that's truly tremendous. It's also only 56 possessions, so very small sample. However, this is the change of pace lineup. This is the wrinkle lineup that you're able to bring in at the middle of the first quarter, middle of the third quarter, after your starters kind of go through their process. And I like the idea of bringing in Hardaway and Peyton Watson into the lineup and changing the flow, changing the entire tempo of the game with those guys the way that they've done. I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. You keep Murray and Jokic out there at the same time, and you plan on staggering Cam Johnson and maybe even Christian Brown too. I'd probably just more focus on Cam Johnson, but the way that Peyton Watson has played, the way that Tim Hardaway has obviously played, those guys can really add to what that starting group is. And it's a lineup I think that makes sense. Peyton Watson's your main on-ball defender. Aaron Gordon's your rotational big, your rotational power forward who can rotate behind Nikola Jokic. And then you've got some other guys who can really space the floor and be great offensively. So that's the change of pace that you're hoping for. It's what you should be hoping for as a Nuggets fan. So looking forward to seeing what they can do there. And then the last one that I really want to talk about, completely different group. It's actually the inverse group, basically. Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, Zeke Naji, and Jonas Valanciunas, a lineup that has been better than expected. Why? Well, it is only a minus 2.3 net rating, despite the fact that you're taking Jokic and Murray off the floor. You've got Zeke Naji on the floor. It's a primary all-bench lineup except for Cam Johnson staggering. And so, like, we've seen these lineups with Jamal Murray really struggle in the past, where they have, and there's another one I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, where they have not been able to reach the offensive heights. They've struggled at various points. Defensively, this lineup is not very good. 126.2 defensive rating, but the offense is at 123.9, which is surprisingly high for a group that doesn't have Jokic or Murray out there. Tim Hardaway's been great. Statistically, he's actually shooting 48.2% from three with Jokic off the floor. He's only 35% with Jokic on, but with Jokic off the floor, he's actually just carried Denver in a lot of these lineups. Not to mention, When Jonas Valanciunas is out there, he's averaging 34 points per 100 possessions with Jokic off the floor as well. So having those two guys anchor things and make things simpler has allowed Cam Johnson to kind of pick and choose his spots, has allowed Bruce Brown to pick and choose his spots. If they kick the ball out to Zeke Naji, he's shooting a wide open three, and he's been okay at that. It's been just fine. It's not like you're not expecting the world there, but the offense has been good enough. And oftentimes I got to imagine that if you're the opposing team, you're breathing a sigh of relief when like Jokic and Murray are off the floor, only for Cam Johnson, Tim Hardaway, Jonas Valanciunas to be surprisingly good in those situations. So good stuff from Denver, good stuff, surprising stuff maybe. Two lineups that I think have been worse than expected. This is a reminder lineup because it hasn't played in a while. First one is Christian Brown at point guard, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. Only 54 possessions, so not a large sample size, but a 103.7 offensive rating, 113 defensive rating, minus 9.3 net rating. This is a lineup that you would expect, like with Jokic as the de facto point guard, Christian Brown kind of subbing in over there, Tim Hardaway providing spacing. This is a lineup that you would expect to be good. And it hasn't been good so far. This is their point guardless lineup, which when Murray is staggering, when he's getting rest to go play with the bench, this is the lineup that they would go to initially in the season. It didn't really work. It wasn't great. Part of that is because Cam Johnson's still figuring some stuff out. Christian Brown started the season slow. Tim Hardaway Jr. wasn't shooting as well with Nikola Jokic, but he was shooting it great without Nikola Jokic. So there's some stuff to figure out there. However, I think that this lineup is something I would go back to. I want to see what this lineup looks like now that Cam is fully adjusted. I mean, with the depth and talent that the Nuggets have at each of these positions, I think that it makes a lot of sense to try out Christian Brown back at point guard, especially if you do have some backup point guard concerns. Like, to me, this makes sense, and I look forward to seeing whether they could do it again. But the next one's kind of the inverse of that. It's the primary bench lineup the Nuggets were using at the beginning of the season with Jamal Murray, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Peyton Watson, Jonas Valanciunas. This lineup played 147 possessions, so a pretty sizable sample size. 110 offensive rating, 123 defensive rating, minus 13 net rating. This was Denver's default bench, and it wasn't good. I think that there are some misnomers, some misconceptions of what happened early in the season. There were some good bridge lineups that happened. There were some good staggered groups that happened where you had multiple starters go to the bench, things like that. But the actual Jamal Murray plus 4 bench guys lineup did not work very well early on in the season. It's one of the reasons why Cam Johnson is staggering lately. So I think that there's some stuff to work out, but Denver's going to have to go back to Murray staggering at some point. Like, he's been playing too well over the course of these last few weeks to realistically, the team's going to need his offense at some point with that second unit. Now, to be fair, maybe you just handcuff Jokic and Murray together, make those lineups as good as possible. Like, the lineups where Jokic and Murray are on the floor together, it's a 132 offensive rating, independent of every other factor. Like, so maybe it is just worth having those guys handcuffed together. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. However, that's not really what I expect to continue to happen throughout the year. And there will come a time where those guys have to stagger, where you're going to need to build up some momentum and chemistry at different points. So I think that they'll go back to a lineup like this when everybody gets healthy. You've got Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway, Peyton Watson, Jonas Valanciunas. Those guys are who I expect to come off the bench when everybody is healthy. And then it's either going to be Cam Johnson or Jamal Murray who staggers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The other thing that they could do is just go full Spencer Jones and say, okay, we're going to go 5 bench guys. We're not going to even have a stagger. I don't expect that to happen. That seems like a thing that wouldn't be likely, but it'll be very interesting to see. Last thing I want to make mention of, Peyton Watson and Spencer Jones, as I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, stepped up really well. They've stepped up exactly how the Nuggets wanted them to step up in in the absence of Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon. You had some really big moments for both of those guys. Spencer Jones at 28 in one game, Peyton Watson at 32. They're operating in the dunker spot really well. They're shooting the ball really well. They are playing hard on defense, doing the right things. I don't know what's going to happen when Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon come back. I wonder if those guys come off the bench for a little bit without touching the starting group. But I do know that like when Peyton Watson was coming off the bench initially, he was not playing well. Like he was uncomfortable with the kind of role that the Nuggets had him in. And then when Spencer Jones was coming off the bench, it was just a very brief stint here or there. It was 5 seconds here. It was 3 minutes there. It was it wasn't really anything groundbreaking, but I think he's played well enough that he deserves a little bit more than that. I wonder if we'll see what happens with the group, but Denver's been going mostly 9-man rotation over the course of these last few weeks. It's what they've had to do with Christian Brown and with Aaron Gordon out. But when you bring those guys back, technically you could go to 11 guys. I think it's pretty easy to cut Zeke Naji from the rotation. You go back to 10. Do you cut Spencer Jones from the rotation? He's been playing really well for you. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to handle it. I hope that Peyton Watson continues to play more small forward, more shooting guard at various points. If he just goes to pure backup power forward, then that's probably not the right call. But we'll see what happens. I'm very curious to see what makes sense. Peyton Watson's had great chemistry with Nikola Jokic. I mean, who wouldn't? But Peyton Watson's been athletic and versatile and cutting really well and doing a lot of the things that you're expecting him to do. So I don't think that you want him to go back to a 20-minute per game role. I think you want him to stay at 25, 26, kind of in that general range. And you want him to come in early off of the bench so that he can play next to Jokic and Murray at times. And he can play next to Jokic and Cam Johnson. He can really blend well with a Jokic, Tim Hardaway, Peyton Watson lineup. Like there's plenty of things that you can do. But I do know that like Christian Brown signed a $25 million per year contract. I expect him to be able to get his starting spot back. You don't lose that because of injury. I wonder what's going to happen with Peyton. I wonder how that's going to affect the rest of the season. And when January rolls around and the Nuggets are trying to figure out their future, not just their present, but their future, Peyton Watson's name is going to come up in trade talks. It just is it's the only thing that Denver can realistically do now that they haven't really signed him. So it's going to be fascinating. I'm curious to see what it looks like, but I have some predictions on how things are going to go for the rest of the second quarter of the season. We'll make a prediction for the next up to 41 games at mid-season here for Denver's record. And then we'll talk about the West NBA Cup predictions tonight here on Pickaxe and Roll. This podcast is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone feel vulnerable. Data brokers, they profit off of your data. It's a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. Have you ever been the victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/hit and use promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/HIT and enter code HIT at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/HIT, code HIT. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, folks. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Got some new fun things coming for Mile High, of course. I've been very excited to sort of figure out the direction that we're going and a lot of the things that we're doing. We did that Peckish spots over this last week. We had a really good time. There's going to be more events at Peckish, so make sure to check that out. Also, I will be at number 38 over the weekend, although I think I might have a very special guest. I'm not sure if I can say it yet, but I think I might have a very special guest when we end up doing that. So should be very good. Looking forward to it. Okay, let's go. Let's talk about the next 18 games. Denver, of course, is 17-6, heading into this long break that they have had. They play a game tomorrow, but then they play another game on Monday against the Houston Rockets. And then they get into this flow where through game 41, they've got a fair amount of road games. They do have a 4-game homestand that they're going to have, given the Houston game that they just had added to their schedule. They're going to play Houston. Then I'll go through it. But suffice to say, they have 11 road games and 7 home games over the course of the next 18, and that includes a 7-game road trip. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to see what it looks like with Denver. Let's go through it. Let's just go through this schedule. I'll throw it up on the screen. Actually, let's do that instead. Let's make a little screenshot here, and then we'll try to put something together. I know this is not going to look as pretty as people would hope, but we do it live. That's how it goes. First game that Denver is going to be facing is obviously Sacramento tonight. They're going on the road. Denver's had problems in the past of doing what they've had to do. Coming off of major rest. They don't have major rest that often, but I remember that's that San Antonio game, and I think a lot of other Nuggets fans do as well. You get 3 days of rest, and you give up 139 points to a team that probably should not have scored that many. They caught a heater, but it didn't matter because you didn't really do anything against them. I think that Denver wins versus Sacramento, though. I think they go 3-1, and like they take the opportunity on the road. They know that they have a road winning streak. This is not the game that they lose against the Sacramento Kings. So there's one win. That puts them at 18-6. Keep track for me, folks. 18-6. I think they win against Houston. 19-6. I think that's the next thing that happens. I think they continue to make it good. I think they win against Houston or against Orlando. I think that like all 3 of these games, now they have some gaps here. I don't know. They'll probably lose one of them. Actually, you know what? We're going to reorient this. They're going to lose to Houston on Monday. That's what's going to happen. They're going to lose to Houston on Monday, but then they're going to beat Orlando, and they're going to beat Houston in that subsequent game next week. So that is 3-1 at this point. So that puts them at 20-7. Then they win against Utah. That one I feel pretty good about. That's 21-7. Then they go back-to-back at Dallas. When they've won the front end of a back-to-back, they have struggled on the subsequent games. I think that's, will they have the energy to do it? Yes, because they're only playing Utah the night before. It's not like they're playing anybody crazy. So, okay, 21-7 after that Dallas game. Actually, that math doesn't make sense. 22-7 after that Dallas game. Then they come home and they play Minnesota on Christmas for game 30. They've already won 2 games versus Minnesota. I think they lose that one. I don't think that's a crazy statement. So they go 22-8 through their first 30 games, and then they go on this 7-game road trip. At Orlando is probably a loss. At Miami is a win. They beat Miami. They dominate Miami. They find a way. At Toronto's been struggling over the course of these last couple weeks. They have been worse. They are 5-6 in their last 11 games. I know that. I think that's one that Denver's going to be able to take care of. At Cleveland, I think they lose. That one I feel pretty good about there. They are going to party in Toronto after that game on New Year's Eve, and then they will not have the requisite energy against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So 2-2 on the road trip. At Brooklyn versus Michael Porter Jr., Cam Johnson goes back home. Not home, like it was where he was playing over the course of the last 3 years. I think Denver wins. I think they find a way in that one. So that's 3-2 on the road trip. At Philly, I think they lose. You can't win versus a Joel Embiid team. If Joel Embiid doesn't play, then like it's just a fact of life. Like Jokic is never going to beat Philly in Philly at this point. It's going to be very annoying. Actually, he did it once. He did it back in 2022. So that's 4. No, that's 3-3. And then versus Boston. Boston's been playing great basketball. They're going to shoot the lights out in that game. I think Denver loses that one as well. So they go 3-4 on this road trip. They were 22-8 at that point. I have them at 3-4 on the road trip. So that puts them at 25-12 heading into that point. Then they come home. They play Atlanta. I think they win that game. They play Milwaukee. I think they win that game. At New Orleans, I think they win that game. And then another back-to-back at Dallas to wrap this thing up. I think they... I had them winning the other Dallas back-to-back, so I think I'll have them losing this one. So 3-1 there. So at that point, they are 28-13 heading into the mid-season point. 28-13. That's the official number that I have for Denver's schedule. If that sounds a little bit disappointing, maybe it should be. They're going to play a lot of games. Like you see some back-to-backs here, but more than anything, after this break that they have, where they have 3 days heading into the Sacramento game, where they have 3 days heading into the next Houston game, where they've got a couple days off heading into that Orlando game. After that, they have 1 or 2 days off. Or no, it's either a back-to-back or 1 day off every single time. Like I'm just looking at the schedule and I'm not looking at a lot of breaks at that point. So the fortunate thing, knock on wood, is that Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon should potentially come back sometime during this stretch. I predicted at Miami was when they would come back. I thought that they would potentially pop back in towards the beginning of that long road trip. So they'll travel with the team. And the hope is that they will be like pretty good. David Adelman yesterday said that he didn't expect Aaron Gordon to be back before Christmas. I don't blame him. That was never going to be within my purview of expecting him to be back at that point. I kind of have him and Christian coming back around the 29th. Maybe they come back slightly later than that, but I do think that about halfway through this stretch is when Denver should be getting some reinforcements from their starters. So they've got to survive for a little bit longer. The fortunate thing is their schedule, they've got 2 Houston games and they've got an Orlando game. But it's still relatively easy from a rest standpoint. There's still plenty of opportunities for them to take a breath, to make it work, to figure it out. So I think 28-13 is a pretty reasonable number. If they go better than that, if they're 29-12 or better, then that is super encouraging. Like that, to me, that's a very encouraging number because Denver's schedule during this stretch is really hard. Like a 7-game road trip is really challenging, even if you're playing a lot of Eastern Conference teams. Like some of these teams are going to be like, it's the only time that they're going to see Jokic and the Nuggets. They're going to go hard for that stretch. And it would not surprise me if Denver gets got in some of these times. But I do think that if you go 29-12 or better, or if you could have 30 wins by the time you have 11 losses, that would be ridiculous. Like that would be a great number. I don't expect it to happen. I think that 28-13 is it's a perfectly reasonable number. But hey, who knows? Like if the Lakers continue to win and add themselves into that mix of OKC, Denver, Houston in terms of games like and teams that are like dominating the top of the West standings, then maybe Denver's pushed. Maybe they're continued to be pushed throughout that time and to be the best version of themselves that they can be. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what it looks like going forward. But that is my official prediction: is 28-13 heading into those into the mid-season mark. Looking at some numbers here for FanDuel, I wanted to go back to these playoff numbers. I think that these are fascinating because they're the odds that basically say, okay, what seed are you going to be in the Western Conference? According to FanDuel, the Houston Rockets are at plus 175 to be the West 2 seed. Denver's at plus 170. So they're basically even in that stretch. The Lakers are plus 380. I think everybody at Vegas basically expects them to drop off just a little bit going forward. And part of that is because their net rating numbers, like they're plus 2.2 or something like that. The Nuggets and the Rockets are plus 8 point something, plus 9 point something. Those teams have been winning and winning by a lot, while the Lakers have been winning a lot of close games. So I think a lot of people expect them to drop off at least a little bit. So Denver basically even with Houston in terms of their odds to be the 2 seed. And as a result, they're basically even in their odds to be the 3 seed. So one of those teams will be the 2, one of those teams will be the 3. I think if you are the Nuggets, and I've talked about this before, you want to try to be the 2 seed if you can, because in the first round, you potentially get a team that's the 7 seed that's outside of the group that features Houston, OKC, San Antonio, the Lakers, and the T-Wolves. If the Nuggets are in there, that's 6. So the next team below that threshold is like the Warriors, for example, is the Suns, is the Blazers if they were to pop in there. Like, I'm not fearful of those kinds of teams if I'm a Nuggets fan. Like you just know that that's going to be a relatively easy first round series in comparison to some of these other teams that you might have to play. So that's my feeling on that. But I think that Denver has to, like, if they are successful in these next 18 games, if they can get to 41 games with like a 30-11, a 29-12, or a 28-13 record, then you have pretty decent odds to be the 2 seed. It's not perfect, but you have pretty decent odds because Houston at some point is going to slow their pace a little bit too, and the Lakers are definitely going to slow their pace at some point. So we'll see what happens. But tonight we've got some big news. We've got some big games for the NBA Cup. Last night, Eastern Conference played, and I believe you had the Knicks advancing, and whoever played the Raptors, or was that no? Because I thought the Knicks and Heat played each other. Gosh, I'm just blanking up a storm. Oh, Orlando. Orlando played one of those teams, and the Knicks played another. Those two teams advanced. Like they've been pretty solid. Surprised that whoever the ones like Detroit wasn't able to make this game, or this tournament, but everybody else has been pretty good. And so Orlando and New York will play. And then tonight you've got the Suns at Thunder in the first matchup at 5:40. And then you've got the Spurs at Lakers. This, according to FanDuel, the Thunder are 14.5-point favorites. 14.5 versus the Suns. The Suns will be competitive. They'll certainly try. They're going to really do what they can. But I think if you're an NBA fan and you kind of understand where the Thunder are at, I do not expect the Thunder to lose. So the money line is minus 1,100, according to FanDuel. That's ridiculous. Spurs at Lakers. The Lakers are 7-point favorites in this one, minus 270 on the money line. I would expect the Lakers to win, but I actually expect the Spurs to cover. I do not expect the Lakers to cover. That one's going to be a close game. But I kind of expect the Thunder to cover their matchup. Like they're just going to dominate. And especially if you get out to a 25 to 30 point lead, like there's just no reason for the Suns to have to push back. Like there's no point differential in this stage of the groups. So there's no reason for them to kind of push back. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it, but that's my predictions. I know, shocking. I've got the I've got the Thunder and Lakers advancing to the west side of the bracket, the championship there. And then at that point, you would have the Lakers and Thunder play each other. Orlando and New York play each other. I think everybody understands where this is going. You either get Shea and the Thunder, or you get Lakers versus Knicks. Like that's what you're hoping for if you are the NBA. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see what happens with Orlando. They lose Franz Wagner. They get back Paolo Banchero. I don't think that Paolo's been playing particularly good basketball since he got back, and I don't think Orlando plays great basketball with Paolo. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. But I would guess, like, I think this is trending towards Thunder Knicks would be my guess, and we'll see what the Lakers have for that if they're able to get past San Antonio. I mean, they're still gonna have to get past San Antonio. We'll find out if they can. But it should be interesting. I mean, does any Nuggets fan actually get FOMO for not being involved in this NBA Cup festivities? Me personally, I've been pretty happy to take a little bit of time to take a little bit of a breath here to really focus in on some different things. But yeah, I don't think Nuggets fans are seriously that upset about it. Now, if you're in it, it's cool. If you're not in it, doesn't matter. It's not. It's just a random thing. So see how it goes. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate the love and support on the podcast as always. I'll be back. I'm not going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to be back on Friday. We will recap the Thursday night game, and then I should have some stuff either on Saturday or Sunday that will be fun that you're not going to want to miss. Have a great one. Enjoy. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'll talk to you guys very soon.